نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم أما بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قال معاذ الله إنه ربي أحسن مثواي إنه لا يفلح الظالمون ولقد همت به وهم بها لولا أن رأى برهان ربه كذلك لنصرف عنه السوء والفحشاء إنه من عبادنا المخلصين. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is mentioning the examination of Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam, that the woman in whose house he was, that she tried to seduce Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam. She locked the doors and she said to Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam, come to fulfill your desires with me. So immediately Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam, he turned to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he remembered Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He said, Qala ma'adh Allah, I seek the refuge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I seek the protection of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah is the only one who can give me protection and safety. And then he said, secondly, Innahu Rabbi Ahsana Mathwai. As we had mentioned yesterday, this can have two translations. One is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is my creator, my sustainer, my nourisher, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has looked after me in a very beautiful way. Or it can refer to the master, that your husband, he is my Murabbi, the one who is my benefactor, and he has accommodated me with great kindness. And the third thing, Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam said, Innahu la yuflihu dhalimun. The oppressive people will never be successful. So here some ulama have mentioned there are three rights when a person is confronted with any sin. Then look at Yusuf alayhi salam said three things, and each one of them is filled with wisdom and teaches us how to respond to a situation tempting us to disobey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the first thing, he thought of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he sought Allah's protection, he didn't rely on his own piety or his own iman to rescue him. And also when the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is taken, then shaitan is repelled, he's moved away. So in this way he had taken the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Secondly, he thought of his master, the husband. If I have to commit evil, then I am not the only one, I'm going to get some enjoyment, the woman will get some enjoyment, but there are many other people around who are affected. And sometimes there are certain people who have done us some ihsan, some favor upon us. So how can I betray my master who has shown such kindness to me? It makes a person reflect that many people will be hurt or impacted by the sin. So sometimes a person, for example, he commits adultery or fornication. He doesn't think, he's selfish for his own enjoyments, his own desires, he's fulfilling it. But there are so many other people affected by it. Like one person went to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and said, "O Nabi of Allah, give me permission to commit wrong." So Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam asked him that if it was your own sister, would you have been happy? Wouldn't it affect you also? If it was your own daughter, would you have been happy? If it was your own wife, would you have been happy? So similarly, when you are doing it, isn't she somebody else's sister, somebody else's wife, somebody else's daughter? Won't it affect them also? If she's married, she's somebody's wife. So won't it affect that person also? So in this way, a person must think it's not only an act between a man and a woman, but there are so many other people who are affected. So one is his own harm we are causing. One is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is watching us. It's against the right of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Secondly, it's against the right of all the other people around who are also affected by it. And thirdly, innahu la yuflihu dhalimun. A person who does such an action is a zulm, oppressor. But the greatest oppression he is doing is upon himself. So he said that the wrongdoers, the zalims and oppressors will never succeed. So we actually are not fulfilling our own rights. We are destroying our own rights. So when a person is committing this sin, he's breaking the right of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He's breaking the right of his own body. Inna li nafsika alayka haqqan. Alayhi salatu wasalam said, your own nafs, your own body also has got a right over you. And he's breaking the right of many other people all around him, all other people in society. So everybody's right he is destroying. So Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam thought of all of these three rights. On here also there was a message to Zulaykha. Let's see, remember, I'm seeking the protection of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Don't you know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is watching you also? And you cannot deceive me if Allah ta'ala is protecting me. And then he said that when he remembered himself about his own master, he was telling her that think about your own husband, how your husband looked after you, how kind he was to you. And he told you, you must look after me nicely. So this is how you're supposed to be looking after me. And third thing, that you are making oppression upon yourself. And if you are doing this, you will never be successful in life. So in this way also he was encouraging her for his own self also. And he was telling her, so this is a beautiful lesson for us whenever a person is confronted with sin, to think about these three aspects. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَلَقَدْ هَمَّتْ بِهِ, that she certainly desired Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam. She had a very strong inclination towards him. And Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam, وَهَمَّ بِهَا, the thought did come in the heart of Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam. He was a human being after all. And if there's no desires coming to a person, then there's no examination. Yeah, this is a test and examination from the side of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As Mufti Shafi Saheb rahmatullah has given us this example. He says, in the month of Ramadan, a person he's fasting and there's lovely juice, for example, inside the fridge. And a person, the thought might pass his mind, it's so nice if I could drink this juice. But a person obviously doesn't make an intention towards it. He doesn't go towards it, but the thought comes to his mind. And this is where the examination is. Now a person abstains from it, the reward is even increased more. So every human being, the inclinations come to a person, thoughts come to a person, but there is no harm in this here, as long as a person doesn't act on the thought. And but her thought was very strong. Walaqad, Allah used the word lam and qad to show more emphasis, that she had a very strong inclination towards Yusuf alayhi salam. She had an intention also. But Yusuf alayhi salam, this the thought that passed his mind. And had he not seen a proof from the side of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then possibly he could have also fallen into the evil. So they say that what sign Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam saw, some say it was a vision of Yaqub alayhi salatu wasalam, his father. Allah ta'ala showed him a vision of his father or his master, or one ayat of the scriptures which in that time it flashed through his mind, or Allah ta'ala placed it on the wall. So Allah ta'ala put certain signs for Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam. And one of the signs also is the conscience of a person. When a person is not habituated to sinning, if some evil comes into a person's life, the thought comes into a person's mind, and he starts getting this conscience, troubles him. How can I do this action? Allah is watching me. And sometimes Allah Ta'ala in different ways tries to prevent a person. But if a person still forces it, and he still passes the barrier, that's when a person falls into a guna and a sin. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala shows a person, Allah Ta'ala guides a person. It's not for a person to accept that. There are many non-Muslim people also, you ask them, they tell you, I had dreams before I accepted Islam. I saw many visions about this. So Allah Ta'ala guides a person. But now obviously if a person doesn't accept that guidance of Allah Ta'ala, then it is his own fault. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, we did all of this, كَذَلِكَ لِنَسْرِفَ, to avert evil and indecency from Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam, that Allah Ta'ala, he was a chosen servant of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Allah Ta'ala gave him the sign to avert evil. Evil here refers to the illicit gaze and touch, which is leads a person to fornication. And Allah Ta'ala removed from him fahsha, immorality, which refers to the zina itself, the fornication itself. So Allah Ta'ala had given him these signs so that Allah Ta'ala can save him and protect him from all of these evils. إِنَّهُ مِنْ عِبَادِنَا الْمُخْلَصِينَ, verily he was amongst our chosen servants, our chosen slaves. And Allah's protection is with his chosen slaves, those who make an effort to become a servant of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And when he falls into these problems and difficulties, then Allah Ta'ala protects and saves a person. And there are great virtues also for a person when such conditions come into a person's life and a person abstains from it. Amongst the 7 people which comes in one hadith, which will be saved on the day of Qiyamah from who will be under the arsh of Allah Ta'ala's, the shade of Allah Ta'ala's arsh on the day of Qiyamah. One person is that youngster who in his youth, a young woman comes to him and she presents herself and she's a woman of status and honor, and he says, Inni akhafullah, I fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and he turns away from her. So the one great virtue is on the day of Qiyamah, when everyone will be under the boiling sun, the heat, they will be perspiring. Allah will give such a person the shade of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's arsh. And besides this, there are many other great virtues, which like how Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam was granted. So anyhow, the thought comes to a person, but now it is for a person to abstain from these desires, not to fulfill the desires, and to obey the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As I mentioned, these examinations come in the life of every single person. It is for a person first not to try to get involved in such situations. That is why Sharia has given certain laws of hijab, that where there must be complete separation between males and females, so he doesn't get into such a situation. But it still happens sometimes a person can fall into such a situation, and then a person has to try to abstain from it, keeping in mind the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this will actually come when a person from beforehand has made an effort upon his iman, then it becomes easy for a person to save himself. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us true understanding.